Hey everyone, and welcome to Adobe Live. I'm Flynn, and I'm here with JESWRI. How you doing?
What's up, guys?
So great to see you all here. If it's your first time to Adobe Live, you can log into the chat room using your Adobe ID, just up in the corner over there, and then you can jump in and ask us questions, or specifically, my awesome guest, Jesse.
Ask me anything.
Ask me anything, yeah.
Don't ask me anything.
Illustrator, muralist, exhibiting artist, and you usually write your work under JESWRI.
JESWRI, yep.
Yeah, cool.
It's a bit of a mouthful, but it gets the job done.
It makes sense. So for people that aren't familiar with your work, what's like a look into your world?
Chaotic.
Yeah.
In a good way. It's kind of like chaotic pop culture, mixed with everything.
Everything from like
Everything,
80s and 90s, every sort of pop culture reference I've ever seen, I've probably seen in one piece of your work.
I think it's safe to say. Yeah, there's no stone unturned.
Yeah, that's super awesome. And you're living in Melbourne now, but you're from Sydney.
Fresh to Melbourne, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, had to get away.
Nice. Very, very good. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a bit of craft. So we're actually going to do
Arts and Craft Hour.
Arts and Craft. We're going to have a crafternoon here on Adobe Live with Jesse. And what are you going to be doing? We're going to be jumping into Photoshop, doing some line work stuff.
Yeah. Basically, I'll be showing a cool, chaotic, crazy composition. Nice alliteration. Give props to myself, yeah. I'm just going to do like a crazy composition and show you how I come up with, like pretty much show how I empty my mind. I don't know, it's probably an easy way to say it, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about like how you approach this stuff as well. But how did you get into illustration in the first place?
I've always just been drawing. I guess that's with any kind of designer, any artist and stuff. Like, I've always just had a pencil in my hand, and you know, without sounding cliche, it just seemed like the job for me.
Yeah.
I guess the way I got into illustration, I was like a graphic artist and graphic designer and art director in like ad agencies and stuff, and I kind of got tired of being told what to do.
Right.
So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go work for myself now. Yeah, it's probably the easiest way of saying it, but yeah, I don't know. I've always been into like street art and drawing, and getting paid to do what I love just made sense.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So just a shout out to some of the people in the chat. Who have we got? We've got Keen, we've got June from Singapore. See, I told you we go out. We go out further than Sydney.
Yeah.
JB is from Sydney. Lana, hello. Yasmin, how you doing, guys? So
I know Yabby. I'm staying at her house tonight.
Oh, perfect. Very good.
Fun fact.
That's a coincidence.
I hope it's the right one.
So thank you so much for joining the chat. You can jump into the chat room and ask Jesse some questions as we go through. We'll try to get to all of them as we can. But why don't we talk a little bit about what we were talking about offline before, about like your approach to coming on here, because we were talking about the approachable approach to illustration, which I thought was super cool.
Yeah. So I guess it all kind of stemmed from, you know, me being invited onto the show, and then you specifically said, have a look at the format, have a look what everyone else has done. And so I did. I looked back at some of like what I class as like the elite level of an artist. And the way that they were doing it, it just seemed so awesome. It seemed like they were explaining it really easily. But the thing that stuck out to me is that I would have to, you know, go back and re-look. And whilst I don't feel like it felt like it resonated with me. And so I think that my approach is that I wanted to reach out for people. I wanted to showcase to people, you know, a super easy beginner's way to do it, and to empty your mind and empty some like crazy thoughts onto a page and go from there, as opposed to like looking at a video and going, oh, this person's extremely talented,
right,
and I can't keep up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The approachable approach, which is pretty sweet.
Trademark.
Oh, and Festus, welcome back.
What's up, Festus?
From Wellington, New Zealand. Awesome to see you there again. Well, that's awesome. Like, I love this idea of the approachable approach. So why don't we take a look at what we're going to kind of dive into today on your screen? So we got...
What up, 50? G unit.
So you get bonus points if you spot every single cultural reference in this artwork.
Yeah. Heads up to people who aren't familiar with my work. Basically, it's like a a giant Easter egg. Like you can find a ton of stuff, and you probably won't stop finding stuff.
It's like Where's Wally for adults?
That's a pretty good way to look at it. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to showcase what I've done?
Yeah. Let's look at the final bit, and then we can look at how you created it.
So this is what I meant by a crazy composition. And so the way that my mind works is that it just doesn't stop. And so I try and young Henrys, I try and make my work look like the inside of my brain. Does that make sense?
Right.
The easiest way to put it is that there's lots going on, and the visuals need to represent that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
So you actually had an exhibition recently.
I did.
In Melbourne, B-Side Gallery, which is super cool. And one of the questions people ask you was like often how you created your work.
Yes.
Like in terms of composition and everything like that, which I think you're going to show us how you do that.
Yeah. So yeah, that was probably the question I received the most at the show. They were like, how do you come up with this stuff? And basically what I said before is it's just I need to empty my mind. And to go backwards, basically this is what my mind looks like.
Wow.
And so going back to the idea of the approachable approach is that like so many people can draw. And I wanted to show the idea of like skipping the talented part, and like how can, you reach out to the average Joe who may or may not be able to draw, but wants to get some ideas on the page quickly.
Cool.
So this is basically what my mind looks like. And if you wanted to put the filters over the top, the images over the top, sorry, you can see it's very busy.
Right.
So I can show you how we got to that. But yeah.
So do you have an idea of the composition that you're going to make and then start like researching all this reference material, or you're just spending like every waking moment like Googling stuff and going, oh yeah, I really want to put 50 Cent in an artwork today?
Yeah, a little bit. I think
a bit of both.
Probably a little bit of both, yeah. I think like each artwork kind of comes from my day to day, and not saying that like I think about centaurs a lot.
Or bat dogs.
For those who don't know, that's actually my dog, but with wings, obviously, so it's not really my dog. I got really awkward really quickly. I don't own a flying dog.
Bat dog. That'd be cool though.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Mm.
To give a bit of an insight, like basically I scroll through Google looking for references and stuff, and I start with there. Like I know that I want to get a centaur going, and I need to the body to match, so I come up with these. That's 50 Cent. That's not a centaur.
50 Centaur.
Now we're talking.
This is how we roll.
This is how my mind works. I needed a body, and then I kind of just went from there. And what I'll do is I empty my artboard, and I'll show basically just a super quick like how this happens.
Cool. If you guys are just tuning in, so here with Jesse, and we are unpacking his mind, which is like everything on the internet all in one image, which is pretty crazy. So we're going to go through a bit of composition about how he sort of plans out how he creates his crazy compositions for murals and also illustrations. And we're beginning with creating a centaur, 50 Centaur.
50 Centaur.
I'm really proud of myself.
It's amazing.
I know. I just wanted to impress you.
Job well done, my friend.
You.
Job
Thank you.
well done. So I'm going to make that later.
Thanks, Yasmin. 50 Centaur just gave me life. We're in this together. Let's roll. All right, so you've got Mr. Bull.
So I've got the body going, and then to turn it into some kind of mythical beast, you need the human torso. So who better than the god? The god.
The man himself.
Yeah. Becky Lynch. Arnold Schwarzenegger. So basically, like when I lay my stuff out, it's generally I turn all the transparency off. And I don't really think this is a big secret to most designers, but like I said, I'm doing the approachable approach, so I want to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, I love it.
Basically this way, you can, if you turn off the transparencies down or low, you can kind of maneuver things where you want them. So now I know that I've got a generic centaur going. From there, I just want to unpack as much as I can and going, all right, well, I don't like his head. So whose head could I possibly use? Deadpool.
Awesome.
So you can kind of see how it just unravels a bit. But ideally it's just this. And then, they've got room on the back of the centaur, so I'm going to chuck someone big to take up the space.
Right. So what I find interesting about this is, are you thinking like, what is the absolute opposite of a body like Arnold Schwarzenegger? And then that's how we get FB here?
FB for short, yeah. I think so, yeah. Ideally, I want someone that's going to weigh down the back. No, when the way that I come up with this is like I'll Google a picture of these bulls and stuff, and then I'll kind of in my head I'll kind of have a rough idea what it's going to look like, and then from there I guess just think of as many references as possible again, and so I can just if you can kind of see here, let me open this up a bit. Yep, you can kind of see half the stuff I've got is just pop culture references as they pop into my head. Do you know what I mean? And then it's like, all right, cool, I can either use them all or I can use none of them.
Right.
And then just keep going.
Seems like a really fun process.
Fun for some, stressful for others. Yeah, it's fun. Put it that way.
It is fun.
I think the cool thing is that when you work like this, there's no real chance to end. There's no real stop. You have to kind of tell yourself.
Right.
You have to, as we said before, draw the line.
Draw the line is an excellent illustration pun.
I think after you've kind of got the basic down, you've got two characters here. You've got one sitting on the back of the centaur, and you've got the centaur itself. You can start building around it, and you can work into how am I going to transition this person into this half man, half bull, and then you can look up accessories I'm gonna make a skull into a belt, and then you can look at taking up space around it. And so some of the things I wanted to take to work around it, is the idea of SpongeBob. I wanted to create something unique with SpongeBob because they're human elements here. Obviously they're mythical, but they're very, realistic. So the thing that I came up with that stuck in my head was Mr. Sparkle.
Fish bulb.
Fish bulb. Waging war on dirt.
Reference game is off the chart today on Adobe Live.
So you can do it any way you want, but the way that I do it is I try and make it as close as possible. So I'll line the eyes up, line the mouth up, and that's just through the transparencies and stuff. And if they're on low, you can kind of see it, but it still looks like junk.
Right.
And I'll just start from there, and once all the pieces are in place, ideally they'll look a little bit like this.
You just group them all together?
Just group them all together, yeah, just for ease, and then turn the layer off.
Cool.
It's a picture of my dog, and you can fill it up as many ways as you want. And then once this, basic skeleton is down, you can start drawing.
Cool.
And then you can, turn layers on and off. So depending on what you can and can't see, you can turn the transparencies all the way up, all the way down. Yeah.
Cool. Hey, we've got a question from Keen. Was asking, for illustrations, do you think of the final sizes first, or do you go straight to sketches to determine the final size later when things are taking shape?
The file size?
Yeah, I guess
the
final size. Yeah.
No, I think when it's just a loose, rough skeleton, it looks like trash at the moment, it's fine. You can always have a go at it later. basically the idea for now is to just get things in rough positions, and then you can either go over later with like, that's too big. Ignore what I'm doing. You can position things where you want, and then you can do it the easy way, or you can, I guess, trace it if you wanted to.
Right.
The way that I'll show you guys today is that I'll trace it, just so there's no fluffing around and whatever. But the idea is to, like I said, just roughly get things into position.
Yeah, cool.
So,
Good question. Thanks, Keen.
Yeah, so the answer to your question is you don't really need to worry about sizes just yet, especially if you're just doing the skeletons. But
Yeah, so obviously this is really early on, but I guess if you were doing a mural and you had a very specific aspect ratio, I guess, or something, you might set it up originally like that, or would you collage it once you get there?
I'm not going to lie, it'd probably be a lot easier to start off extremely organized.
Right.
I'm not one that's organized.
Okay, this is still brain dump. This is like getting everything out, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah, my finished art's not there until it's finished.
Nice.
I'll worry about the organization later. What's that one? Do you bother masking reference image elements? Yeah, I think I do sometimes mask the images. This is probably a bad example, but I think this is just an idea to show like how much clutter can come from it. If you wanted to, you can definitely mask some stuff out. So, like just to get rid of some of the other clunk. So like, you don't need any of that pink stuff, and that can really affect the way other stuff looks. And same goes for like SpongeBob as well. If you don't need his face, then you could definitely do it that way. But
do you often find yourself doing that?
Not really.
Yeah.
No. Like the way that I do it is I'll just draw straight over the top. Like,
yeah,
I'll see what I see. I don't really like taking that many shortcuts with just scamps.
Yeah, cool.
I think when it comes to it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, nice.
It's a very vague answer.
No, it's good. It's good to see, because like sometimes there's like the technically proficient way to do it, and there's like, yeah, but do you actually do that in practice? And is it actually worth the time? Because every step when you're doing it for a career or when you've got a limited amount of time, it's like super valuable, right? Yeah. It's like, okay, well, it took me a couple of hours to do this, and I spent 15 minutes dedicated to this. So if you can save those efficiencies, you can do more work, spend more time on the creative side of things.
Yeah, definitely. Like I work in Illustrator like a lot, but I see people who who organize the layers. I don't trust people that organize Illustrator layers.
We're a proponent of like labeling your layers here, so we're going against the grain.
I go hard against the grain.
That's fine. That's good. You need to keep us in check. There was a question in here actually. Is there an advantage to using Photoshop as opposed to Illustrator?
Yes. So Illustrator I try and keep for like vector images and stuff. So if you know that that's what a client wants, if you know that it's going to be an Illustrator, if you know it's going to be like a shirt design or something like that, where it's going straight to print, it might be worth doing maybe a bulk of your work in Illustrator, but I tend to do most of my work in Photoshop. And you can still turn something into a finished art and still have it print ready from Photoshop as well. I think the advantage is in Illustrator is it's cleaner. It's much, much cleaner.
Right.
When I'm done with this, I could definitely take this to Illustrator. It's just, how prepared and organized you are, and yeah, there's no real answer to that. I'm sorry. Just clean versus pixelated. That's probably my best answer.
Cool. All right, we'll do one more question, and we'll move on to the stuff. Why are you using Photoshop bitmap for cartoons illustration instead of AI vector? I kind of already answered that, so that's totally cool.
Yeah. Well, I know this illustration isn't going to go past web, so the reason why I'm using it is because it's easier, and I've just always worked in Photoshop, so I guess it's just what you're comfortable working in. Like some people work in for an Illustrator entirely only. Some people work in InDesign only.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
Fluent,
yeah. All right, well, let's jump into, maybe we'll sketch out a couple of these characters.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
I'm keen on Fishbulb.
There you go, Fishbulb. Sweet. So when I draw, I think it's a big thing for illustrators that they tend to float between different brush sizes.
Right.
I don't do that. If you want everything to stay consistent, it's best to just stick with one brush size, and whether you can do a line down the side and erase it later, so you can always come back and go like, all right, that's how thick my brush is, or you can look up in the top and then go, all right, well, it's 20. I'm gonna stay on 20 for the entire drawing. When you work on something like a digital tablet, you can control pressure, like it's pressure sensitive.
As opposed to using a mouse for those at home, or a trackpad.
Fun fact, I used to use a trackpad like all the time for all of my drawings. The thing that sticks out with my style is that like I work kind of hand in hand with the pressure, and that's why like some of my stuff I come out with like super drunk looking lines. So like I'm not a big believer in like everything needs to be clean. Like I think that if you've got a strength, then stick with it. You know what I mean? Like you can't force clean if you're not clean. Like I've got shaky hands, so I'm not going to try and be clean.
You got a potential broken thumb right now. You were telling me before.
Man, I told you that in confidence.
You're going to lose your snowboard scholarship, are you?
Yeah, I did something extremely manly to break it. I opened a can of salsa, and it's definitely 100% broken. As you can see, I can move it.
That's just adding to your aesthetic of the wobbly line, though, right?
100%.
If it ever gets better, you might have to re-break it.
It's not a bad idea.
Don't do this at home.
Yeah, don't break your thumb, and do not open cans of salsa around your girlfriend. Otherwise, she'll make fun of you for the rest of your life.
What tablet are you using as you're drawing?
I'm using a Wacom. I can never remember the name. Wacom Intuos Pro. So thanks to the guys at Wacom.
It might be in the chat there. They're sometimes watching. What's up, everybody?
Hey, Wacom friends. So obviously this is a bit messy and this like looks super drunk, but I'm just rushing through it to show you like how you can see 2 layers at a time, and yeah.
Is there a good name, chat, for this SpongeBob / Homer Simpson character?
Taking requests.
We're taking requests.
Sort of like a competition you can name. I'm not even gonna give it a name. I'll let everyone else come up with it.
50 Centaur is the name to be, just if you're looking for inspiration. One of the questions Chris was asking in the chat, do you often cheat and live trace PSD stuff in Illustrator?
Oh man.
So that's using the live trace tool?
Yeah.
Button, essentially?
Look, I'm not going to throw that out the window, and I'm not going to throw it under the bus either, because sometimes it can really work, but then if you take a drawing into Illustrator and then you've done so much work in Photoshop and live trace it, you're going to have to go back and clean it up. So look, I'm not throwing it out the window, but I would avoid it as much as possible. There's ways you can take it into Illustrator and still make this a vector. But definitely kind of try and avoid that as much as you can.
Got Joel was saying call it Piglet. I've also got Home Bob. You might have got me with Home Bob.
Who said Home Bob?
Niha? Nia. You got us.
Good old Piglet. Piglet, your dog. It's an inside joke with the rad guys.
I see.
But yeah, get the rough idea, and then I think now my thumb's warming up. It's not the lines aren't as drunk.
Got the blood flowing now, so you're all set.
It's all that caffeine. Hook it to my veins.
Chris was also asking, sorry Chris, I missed your question before, but using custom brushes or standard?
Nah, man, I just use standard brushes.
OG?
Yep.
Okay.
No, you can get them and you can make them yourself, but this is just standard. Like, I don't really think that anyone needs to make them. Like, Photoshop's pretty good, and yeah, apparently not. No, I'm kidding.
Photoshop's pretty good. You heard it here first.
Yep. No, Photoshop's pretty good. Like, it comes with everything you need, and you know, if you want to tweak it to make it worth your while, then great. Like, you can tweak it up here, in the, where is it? You can tweak it.
You can tweak.
You can tweak it. I don't know how.
Tweaks are possible.
Yeah. There's ways you can tweak it. Like, you can change the strength and the flow of the brush and stuff like that. But I think for easiness sake, like, you don't need to. Like, you don't need to change. Like, it's not broken, so don't fix it. I do use some custom brushes for like other stuff. Like, there's a rad company called True Grit, and they make like mad halftone brushes and stuff.
True Grit. It's a Australian guy, I believe.
Yeah, I think Andrew.
Andrew, that's right.
Yeah. So like, I've got them all down the bottom. And they're good for like, you know, halftones and stuff like that. But be warned, like, you can overdo it.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a rabbit hole with that stuff. You have to know you know when and where to use all these things sparingly.
Yeah. Like, you can see that that can look okay when I put. Yeah, but you don't really need them. Hey,
I'm loving this naming.
What are they calling it?
Thing.
Home Bob
Squares and Sponge Home. Nice. Hey Divya, nice to see you again.
But yeah, I think like the rough idea is there. And yeah, you can add features in later that weren't probably there and make it really unique to you.
Nice.
But that obviously works with everything. Hey, so here's something I prepared earlier.
Yeah.
So what you didn't see before is that he didn't have a bottle in his hand, so I added a little bit of craftiness. Yeah. So the same obviously applies, and I just kept the same brush size throughout the whole thing, and same with what I did with Home Bob Squareson, is that I just traced over everything. And it's not cheating if you trace. I think there's a lot of designers do it, a lot of illustrators do it. It's taking an easy route. Props to everyone who can probably draw this. I couldn't draw this straight off the top of my head. But yeah, it's the approachable approach.
Mr. Spongesicle, that's awesome. If you're just joining us for this punny episode of Adobe Live, here with Jesse, jump into the chat. We're having a pretty good time. We might move on to, there's some type on this.
Correct.
On this illustration piece. Well, I know this from memory. We had a conversation before we went live, which I think would be really cool to see you do that in your style as well, and like how you kind of approach typography or lettering for the purists. Even the hand stuff up the top. Like, do you have beautiful writing? Normally,
It fluctuates.
it fluctuates.
Yeah, it's
between breakages.
between salsa jars.
Right.
Yeah, no, I hand drew that. I've got pretty good handwriting where it counts.
The reason I ask is I've had people on the show and other illustrators that I know that have god-awful handwriting, almost illegible handwriting, but their calligraphy and their type work is stunning.
Yeah. I don't know. I used to do graffiti.
Right.
So I got stable handwriting from writing on moving trains.
Right.
So
it's easier when it's just sitting in a studio with a computer in front of you.
I don't think my Wacom's going to come and arrest me.
No.
So
I think so.
No, yeah, I've got pretty stable handwriting. I think it's just through practice.
How good's that, Jeremy? Joel, you just answered Joel's question. Where's the typography skills come from? Graffiti, essentially. Right?
Graffiti.
Totally legal graffiti, I'm sure.
Very, very legal graffiti.
Jeremy L, it might be Jeremy Lord if it is. Hey, Jeremy, friend of the show, amazing artist himself. When can we expect a Home Bob Squaresome mural somewhere?
When the money comes in.
Right. Okay. We'll start a fund for that.
Let's start a GoFundMe to get Home Bob Squaresome on the side of Parliament House.
Neo's asking, what's the idea behind the incorrect spelling on the no regrets? Does it mean anything else? Now we're getting into the meme section.
Into the meme section, yeah. Wait, that's not how you spell regrets? Oh man, I really got to get that tattoo removed then. Yeah, it's from, what movie is it from? Like, is it The Millers or something like that?
And I think it predates that. I think there's like a meme of a guy who's got a tattoo and the neck actually says no regrets.
Yeah.
But obviously, ironically, it's spelt incorrectly.
Yeah.
And then I think that's just made it into the internet.
Yeah.
And here we are.
That's where I got it from, the internet.
Yeah.
So I get majority of my my brain functions entirely on memes. It's fueled by memes. Fueled by memes. Yeah, no regrets comes from that kid, that the redneck kid that was like pulling down his singlet and he's got that no regrets tattoo. Yeah, that's where it came from.
Yeah.
I legit want to get that tattooed though.
Yeah.
We're the Millers, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people were in Millers as well. All right, cool. Good to see that it's out there. But there you go.
There you go.
One meme at a time. So we go back up to the top to the type.
Yeah. Back to the type.
Back to the type.
So basically, I had the type was last. So after I've done all this, I've done the drawing and stuff. I knew that this area kind of lacked, and I didn't necessarily need to put more images in there. I felt there would be overkill, and I like using type where it can benefit the piece. And in majority of my pieces, like I use type to kind of hint at what the piece is, or to like comment on the hidden meaning in a way. So I guess the way that this is saying, living a life of illusion, doesn't have of there, but it does in the final piece.
That's the illusion.
That's the illusion. It kind of hints at the fact that, this piece is so, it's hyper real. Like it's not, it's surreal. Sorry. It's definitely not real. So the illusion kind of gives the fact that everything's fake. So I think that this benefits a piece. Like if you can use type where it counts, then go for it. But if it doesn't need it, then don't try and put it in. But I wanted to try and see if it worked, and yeah, it worked. Cool. The way that I kind of started by putting that in was, as you can see roughly, was these like wavy lines, because I felt that that's the way that the type needed to be laid out. I can't work properly today. And everything I do with type is generally hand drawn. So I broke this into boxes, like rectangles and stuff. And then going back to my history.
This is definitely the graffiti artist approach.
You can 100% see the fact that this is graffiti influence. I think the fact that like with that, it kind of taught me how like letters are shaped, and they don't necessarily need to look like fonts. They just need to look like do you know what I mean? Just need to look roughly what it is.
Right. Like it doesn't have to be consistently perfect or technically perfect.
Yeah. Well, if you go into it as well, like if you break down a font, this is how fonts they look like. This is how they're created. So sometimes I need to go outside the box, but whatever. Don't judge me. So yeah, you can see that there's pretty consistent gaps between everything, and you write down just ideas.
Wow, yeah, you have great handwriting. I'd be there all day trying to get that right. Terrible handwriting over here.
Yeah.
And some birds.
Thank you. Are there birds in there? No.
Just the M's.
Oh, okay. And so yeah, from that part, you've kind of what I'll do to go further into creating the type is that you can kind of see that morphs into that, so I can turn that layer off.
And these are just creating your guides, right?
Yeah, just creating my own guides. I'll go over to get where I got there. I might as well break this down as quick as possible. Now you've got that layer turned down. You can go over a bit more, a bit finer. And not every letter needs to look like this, but it's just you can do it however you want. Hey, life. Yeah. So you go over everything like a little bit finer in each layer, and the way I do it is I just kind of just build on top until I get the right one, until I feel it's clean enough. Yeah. And then once those layers are done, just keep turning things down until you can kind of get a rough finished product. I'm pretty happy with that. So from there, I've created like a bit of a perspective point down here. Just roughly draw from each corner down to where that point is.
So is this a perspective thing?
Yeah, it's a perspective thing. So this is to give the type what I felt needed a bit more backbone in a way. But yeah, so just by adding these lines here, it kind of fills out more space and whatever.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, Divya, I know, it's exactly nice cursive, right?
Go jump on a train with a texter and don't do it.
Don't do it.
You get me in trouble. Yeah, so as you can see, then it's just one of those things that you can just constantly turn off layers and I really shouldn't have said that. I don't know. I feel like if people go ride on trains, I'm in trouble.
Don't ride on trains.
Don't ride
That's
on
fine.
trains.
You can do this in the safety at home with Adobe products. No one's getting arrested. It's just friendly fun. Yeah, it is amazing handwriting, and it probably is from years of doing that.
It's also, you know what it's from? It's also from years of practice on paper.
Practice on paper.
Practice on paper.
In primary school.
In primary school and high school and on trains. And yeah, so basically you'll create multiple layers until you kind of have something that you like. And the way that I got the fill and stuff, and like all the fill that I've done is that I'll create a new layer for stuff and then turn everything down so I can still see where I'm going. Does that make sense?
So keep all the fill on one layer?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll get a bit ahead of myself and do it on the original layer, but then I'll pay for that later.
Right. That's not a planned thing.
No.
It's just, you're just excited.
Just excited, yeah. But I think like when you get a chance to do like a new layer with for filling and stuff, you can also go back in and find stuff that you may have missed. Like, filling in here and like, oh, maybe I missed a line on that skull here, and yeah, like you can add stuff that may not have been there already. Like it's just another way of proofing yourself. And yeah, constant layers, constant transparency, and eventually get a finished product. Being that, hopefully that helped the type.
And how did you fill it in? Do you color it in? Do you do it by hand? Do you like use a fill tool? What do you do?
Yeah, I just do it by hand. Hey, there's probably a much quicker way to do it, and I just going on the previous ones, like there definitely is, but I feel that this way kind of makes me feel like I'm doing it hand drawn, and it kind of gives that like coloring book feel. Like,
yeah,
I know when I was a kid, like I used to love coloring books
with textures.
Yeah, and so this makes me feel like it's like an adult's coloring book.
Yes.
And then so it kind of, for me, it adds, even though it's digital, it adds like that hand done feel. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And then, yeah, just come back in and clean it up a bit.
So you're just erasing it there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an eraser for everyone at home. But yeah, and then same thing applies, just go through it all and clean it up on the sides, and then eventually you can turn that layer back up and you get, a little shocking. Yeah, you get that.
Get that one.
Yeah, and then you can turn that layer off, the original pencil sketch.
Right. Your like guides.
My guides.
Your guides.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you don't label your layers.
It also happens when you don't sleep.
Also lack of sleep. That's true. JB was asking, do you have typo inspirations from somewhere? Like, is it pop culture again?
Yeah, I definitely find like a lot of inspiration in comic books, like comic book covers. But I also find a lot of inspiration in blockbuster movies, like especially ones from the 90s and even the heavy hitters, these like the ones that are coming out now, like Avengers and stuff like that. Think the way that like that blockbuster feel is what I try and do for a lot of my pieces.
Star Wars,
yeah, definitely. Like, look at things like Guardians of the Galaxy posters and stuff like that. They're all kind of the big compositions with massive blockbuster type. So I think that's where I get my idea for type from. Obviously, this isn't a good reference of it, but that's where I get a lot of my inspo from. Is that kind of stuff. And even if it's not from there, like I'm a massive fan of Japanese typography, Japanese graphic design and advertising, because it's just so loud.
Right.
So like the heavy focus might have been like on the product itself and the name, and then you got like the little like selling point, like, or it's pineapple pen or something.
Right.
Yeah. So Japanese advertising, comics, and like blockbuster movies. That's where I get my inspo from. Type from.
Just all mashed together.
It meets in the middle somewhere.
That's so good. That's awesome.
What's a super old movie? Them? Is that a movie?
Don't
Must
know.
be with a capital letter.
Maybe. So you were talking about using the same size brush throughout, and as I look through the illustration, there's some actually like pretty fine points. So if we look at your dog,
yes,
I'm like really interested in like how you get such fine detail by using the same size brush, or were you joking before and you actually use a smaller brush?
No, I use the same size brush. I think that's the trick with pressure sensitive tablets and stuff. So I think that's. I'll turn off this and I'll go back to my dog.
What's your dog's name?
This is Ace.
This is Ace, of course he is.
Ace Ventura. We named him after a Japanese wrestler, Tanahashi. He's the ace of New Japan.
Nice.
So I'll show you how I kind of came up with this. The way that I sketch portraits and like sketch anything is I'll find the obvious things, and then like I think it's kind of similar to like tattoos and stuff as well. But you can kind of see like just then how my hand kind of skipped off. It just meant I'm taking my hand off the tablet just as much.
Right.
So just do like lighter lines. Probably a poor example, but yeah, I definitely use the same brush.
Poor example?
You're full of puns today, man.
They're just coming out. We've got some couple of questions while you're doing this as well. What do you reckon? We'll do both at once?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you have a favorite comic artist?
Do
you follow it that closely that you're like, oh wow, this is that artist?
Yeah. Frank Miller.
Frank Miller?
Yeah.
Cool.
So heavy in black work and like he did all like Sin City and like
Sin City and Superman and stuff.
Yeah, like Batman, Dark Knight Returns and stuff like that. Yeah, definitely Frank Miller.
Nice. Sarah was asking, how long does a typical artwork take to complete?
Generally, like, I'd want to spend maximum 3 hours on an artwork. Otherwise, it's not worth the money. If I go over, that's fine, but I think I'd generally position artworks around 3 hours. I think bigger pieces like murals and stuff take a little bit longer. Just kind of depends on how much you're getting paid.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. But generally 3 hours.
So you could get something out that you're pretty happy with after about 3 hours.
I think so. Like I could, like the more you draw, the quicker you get, and obviously when that happens, you get paid more. You get paid more for spending less time, which is the ultimate goal.
That's why I like finding those efficiencies in your workflow and everything. Super important.
Big time, yeah. So I think that, yeah, that's way too thick. I may have fibbed a little. I may have used the thinner brush. No. I'm not taking responsibility for that.
We've got another question. So June was asking, may I check, is there any minimum resolution size to illustrate like this? And what's the ideal, resolution size? We talked a little bit about size before.
Yeah. It does matter. Generally, on most of my works, I illustrate on like A3 at about 300 DPI. Only because I think most of my illustrations don't go past that. Like majority of people who I work with generally want like shirts and stuff.
Right.
So if I was to blow up an A3 illustration, it's not going to really go any further than like A3. For murals and stuff, it doesn't necessarily matter because it's only scamps for murals. Something like this, I guess, it just depends. You have to have as much knowledge as you can before you go into it. So if you know what you're designing for, then I guess you can tailor towards that. Yeah, I guess just like between 300 and 500 DPI. No less than 3 for sure.
Cool. Do you reckon RGB or CMYK when you're using color?
CMYK for sure.
CMYK? Yeah.
Yeah, but once again, it just depends what you're doing it for.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing it for web, then RGB for sure. But
yeah.
For like shirts and stuff, even for mural scamps, definitely CMYK. Purely because you have to like Pantone match and
right. Yeah, for sure. Nia was asking, do you have a daily work routine for illustrations? Like, how do you keep up with relationships being an illustrator?
How do I like keep up with my relationship?
I guess, yeah. Or maybe we'll focus on the easier, lower hanging fruit. Do you have any daily routine for illustrations?
Yeah, so I know that like my mind like cuts off after a while. Like I have such a short attention span, and I guess like the benefit of working for yourself is you get to make your own hours. So I know that like everyone's different, but for example, I work best between like 8 a.m. and I'll probably cut off at like 11, maybe 12, and then I'll start again maybe like 4, end at 7, and then generally because my mind's a lot busy, I'll pick up again at like 10 o'clock at night and then and go through 3 in the morning. But most of my best work is done at like early hours in the morning, like after midnight.
Yeah, like when you're all wired, all connected.
Yeah,
bit of rest most of the time.
Yeah, you can see the bags on my eyes.
Not all the time.
These are Gucci.
Don't, you'll draw them in, you'll make them darker.
But yeah, balancing a relationship, I think it's good to have someone that's gonna understand that you have to work hard for your money and your money doesn't come from everywhere. So yeah, just have someone's understanding, I guess.
Understand the hustle and respect the game.
Yeah, for sure.
So so I have another question. Hey Jess, is image tracing a faster way of recreating some of these illustrations for SpongeBob, for example, or are there disadvantages of that over sketching?
Yeah, so that was image tracing in Illustrator again.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's advantages of it. Like if you're just using it for like a mural or something, like, and you just want to, and you're gonna paint over like a projection or something like that, sure. Or if it's for scamps, but I would heavily advise staying away from image trace wherever you can, for sure. I think there's the element of having something, hand drawn, is the thing that keeps us as illustrators in work. And if there's a button that costs us money and takes money away from us, then I want to avoid it as much as possible.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like the value is in, the handcrafted and the bespoke piece, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of brands as well, like clothing brands that they'll find like a cool design or something and they'll just hit image trace and like, oh cool, well I just saved myself like $500. Sure, but then you can give
it happens a lot, doesn't it? Yeah,
it happens so often. Yeah, but you can give me that $500 and I'll give it that hand-drawn element.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Kate was asking, what should you start with if you're a beginner? How to get to grips with Photoshop and so on. You were talking about earlier on, you didn't have a tablet, didn't have anything like that. You were drawing with the trackpad.
The trackpad and the mouse,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Photoshop it's a little bit harder to draw in if you don't have a Wacom, to be honest.
Because of the pressure?
Because of the pressure, Yep. Look, you can. I worked for about 2 years using a mouse and trackpad. Not easy.
Yeah.
I worked in Illustrator, and I used the blob brush, so I might even be able to bring that up.
Yeah, let's show it.
Cool. I'll show you my really old technique of not using one. But
nice. It's a great question, I think, because so often you might think, well, I'm really interested in getting into photography, and then someone says, great, you're going to need like a $15,000 kit, which isn't true.
Yeah.
And we actually had a conversation with the very talented Demas, who was on here, and he was showing us 2 images, and one of them was done shooting on his phone, and the other one was with his really fancy, nice kit, and it was almost impossible to tell the difference.
Yeah.
He was saying, it's fine, like whatever you have, you can still create. And if you're really into it, or you find that you're enjoying it, or you're getting something out of it, anything, then you can upgrade. But there's certainly places that you can start.
Yeah, you don't need a trackpad. It definitely, sorry, not a trackpad. You don't need a tablet. It definitely helps. You can't deny that. But like, if you don't have it, you can't afford it, you don't need it. So this is an example of me drawing with my trackpad.
Wow.
Obviously you get better in time, and like this is just with a blob brush. And if you zoom in, like this is the difference between like Photoshop and Illustrator. Like you zoom into this line, and like if you do that in Photoshop, it's pixelated. So I did this for like 2 years before I got my Wacom. So it's definitely doable. If you like drawing with paper and stuff, you can always bring it in and then work with it in Illustrator. Like that's maybe when you can hit image trace, and then you can refine it. So like that's an example there, right? But if you were to image trace that same drawing, then let's see what happens. Like you can see, expand that and get rid of the white. One sec. So you can see like how you get lines like this that like you'd have to smooth out later anyway. So that's why I'm not saying it's necessarily a great idea to image trace stuff, because you just have to probably spend more time fixing it up later.
So you do have to come back and clean it up.
Big time, yeah. Yep. So yeah, to answer your question, you don't need tablets. It helps for sure, but there's ways around it. You can use pen tool on it. Like I used to use pen tool all the time. Just like you can just create when it wants to work. Yeah, you can just like, and then yeah. I didn't really do anything. I just said and yeah.
Showed the pen tool. Can you show? If we switch back to Photoshop, you were showing also another technique that you used to do without a pen, without a Wacom, where we drew the line and then you use the eraser to kind of get those sharp lines, which I've actually not seen before done in this technique. So this might also help you out.
Let's just go back to, let's pick one. So let's just use Deadpool as a reference. So yeah, this is just using the brush tool. You kind of want to get it to a size where you know that it's not going to change much and it won't matter, but basically just keep the same width. You could always go like do lines like this and then come back with an eraser and sharpen it up. So that's what I did for years. It's not the best way to do it, but if you don't have the equipment, it doesn't hurt. Yeah. And you still have that hand-drawn appeal. Depends how quick you can go. Like, you can still get something done in time. Yeah.
That's cool. I like that technique.
It's handy when you don't have things.
You can do that on the train, on the bus.
Man, the amount of times I work from the train and bus.
It helps with the shaky style.
Adds to it, yeah. What do you mean?
That's great. Some really great questions. Yeah, someone was talking about like occupational health and safety using tablets. It's quite interesting. I used to use a tablet at work sometimes for about half the day, trackpad for the rest of the day, and when I was at home I used a mouse.
Yeah.
Just kind of break things up. I do find that if you're using the one thing constantly all the time, you can get into some problems for the older folks like me out there. For you young folks, something to look forward to.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're getting towards the end. If you guys have any questions, we've got about another 5 minutes, but do you have any sort of passing advice to people that want to get into illustration or do what you're doing or become a freelancer?
Yeah, the thing is 2 questions in that.
There are.
To become an illustrator, or to feel the best you can, I think the best advice to just do it every day. If you want to take it seriously, like I draw every day.
Yeah.
A lot of the time during the day. So try and get into the groove of like having to do something every day, and not only that, you get to evolve your practice and take your designs further and further and further, and after a while you notice the difference between your design like a month between.
Right. Like you start noticing yourself progressively get more consistent or better or faster and all those things.
To go full time, there's no real best time. It's not like, all right, I'm ready. It's literally just taking a leap of faith. And like, I think that when I left my advertising job, I think I had like $100, and I just had like 1 gig, and I was just like, I'm out.
We're doing this. This is happening.
Had no choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
But there's no real time. Yeah.
Cool. All right, we've got a couple of questions. Would it be easier to paint gradient colors on the cartoon background in Photoshop or Illustrator?
Cartoon colors. Oh, like to fill it in.
I guess, yeah. So we haven't covered color. Obviously, it's like a whole nother section that we could cover.
Either. It's just what your preference is. Like you can do it in Photoshop. It's just, I think when you go to color, the best way to do it is in layers. So you would have like for my example, you'd have black work on top, and then underneath you would have a layer when you can just put color in. You can just use brush or pen or anything like that to do some solid colors. You can even mask them out later.
Yeah, cool. I like it. It's good advice. There's been some great questions in there, everyone. Actually have a shout out to a competition with Beautiful Bazaar magazine that we thought you guys might be interested in, so we're just going to do a quick shout out for that. So there's like $20,000, I believe, up for grabs for any artists out there, which includes illustration, which could be quite cool. So
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I know, right? We're gonna check it out. Maybe I can enter it too. Am I allowed to enter it? I don't know.
$20,000 dues.
Yeah, that's many dollary dues. So through Beautiful Bazaar magazine, check out the details. There's some amazing artists. There's the judges and everything as well. And there's it's a great opportunity. So check it out. So someone was asking where best to see your work. We've shared the link to your website.
Yep.
Your Instagram as well.
Yep. Everything is at JESWRI, JESWRI. Google it. I'm like probably the only person with that name on Google. So JESWRI.
That's what you want.
Yeah.
JESWRI.
I'll fight anybody who tries to take that name.
Thank you all for your great questions. We hope to see you. We're here every Wednesday, so we hope to see you next week with some more illustration, actually, with our friend Jeremy Lord. Thanks very much for coming on, Jesse.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
A crisp high five.